Hey everyone, this is the Urban Collective Show. It's your man NIC alongside.
What's up, everybody? It's your First Lady, Ms. Bernadine Truth. Hey, Collective. So excited to have you all back with us one more time.
Yes, it's another week. We're back to back this week. Our special guest for this evening was supposed to appear last week, but unfortunately things had to be changed. So we came back and we have another show for everyone, for the whole collective this week. Hopefully you're not tired of seeing our faces and hearing our voices.
Right. We're out here to rock with y'all.
Yeah. So how you doing, Bernadine? How's everything going with you?
I can honestly say, I think this week has been a better week for me, energy wise, and just being able to connect with people again in a way where I don't feel as sad or taken aback by the realities of our world. But I'll be honest, I feel challenged by that, right? Because I think part of me is it feels good to be able to laugh again in a way where I'm not so defeated or feeling so challenged and hurt by the dynamics of the world. But that's part of the problem, is I think that at some point when we do go back to a sense of normalcy, and I put that in quotes because nothing about how we operate should be normal, but when we go back to a place where we can balance work in our traditional sense and our families and our friends and be present, it's almost like we forget about the racial injustices of the world. And I've had to even say that to my colleague, to my supervisor, and I felt awkward with her when I was telling her, I feel good and I feel like I'm back on track at work. But I'm like, let's not forget, just because I feel like I'm back on track at work, that again, systemic levels of oppression and institutionalized racism don't exist, right? We're still working on behalf of something. And so I'm at a point right now where I feel like, what is our world going to look like in a month? What is our world going to look like in 2 months and 3 months? Because COVID is still in existence, right? But people are back out. People's restaurants were in phase 2 in Boston. Restaurants are slowly opening up again. TJ Maxx and Marshalls opened up, which was a highlight of last weekend for folks.
Wow, I haven't gone to TJ Maxx and Marshalls in so long.
Yeah, but no, right. But that's what I'm saying. It's those little moments, right? But again, we're still living in an oppressive world. And so let us not forget. And so how do we maneuver through that? So I feel like that's where I've been at this week, right? Enjoying the happier moments, but also just checking myself to make sure that I'm always still present too. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm healing. So that's a great thing. I had my ankle that I told you about, my heel. There's a be problem. So I can put some weight and everything back on there. So that's good. So I'm excited. Besides that, I've gotten better as far as, ever since all of these protests and everything started. I was kind of down. Now I'm, hopefully back on the upwards trend. But it still is like what happened the other day to Rashad. It's like, oh, come on now, are you kidding me? So I feel like every time I'm like, oh, things are getting better, things are happening, and something else happens that causes me to go back to that same place of like, are you serious? Mentally, I'm still juggling that part. But everything else, physically, work, personal life, everything else is good. Job is good. Career is good. Moving on up as I can throughout the career paths and everything. So can't complain about that, even throughout COVID, to be doing that, which is pretty great. Most companies are not doing that. So I'm very excited about that, starting a new position and everything. So that's pretty neat. But besides
wait, you said you started a new position?
Yeah. Started a new position June, first week of June. So it's the second week. I'm into it. So, got a promotion at work. So that was pretty interesting. Fun time. But yeah, excited. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's like this dark cloud I feel like there is out there, and I can't get rid of it. So trying to figure that out. But besides that, I'm excited. And like you were saying, Birdie was talking trash to me earlier, y'all.
I don't talk trash. I make peace. I recycle.
Bernadine was talking trash to me earlier, so I'm expecting my first child. And Bernadine, last week I accidentally mentioned it. Not accidentally, but I mentioned it without even noticing that I mentioned it. And Bernie's excited. She's been wanting to tell you. So collective, yes. I am expecting.
We're having a baby. I say we. It's the collective. The collective's having a baby. Yeah, we're having a baby.
Crazy. So I'm excited about that. It's very exciting.
So excited. I'm so excited for you to share it publicly. Now I get to talk about it. I'm like, we
Yeah,
have
but it's been bothering me
baby.
every week. Like, when are you gonna say something? I'm like,
Right. Because it's not my business, like it's not my business to share.
no, I completely
And
understand.
and,
Completely understand.
and
Yeah,
I'm like, but now that you done put it out there.
I'm not one of those people that likes to go post everything online and everything. So I usually tell people I'll do stuff, and then afterwards you'll find out. Unless you're like a real good close friend of mine. Otherwise, it's
It's business as usual. But how does it feel? Like, how does it feel? Like, co-host? Are we gonna have the baby on the show, or are we gonna make
what?
room for a third co-host?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, I'm excited.
No, I'm excited. It's very weird, but excited, anxious. It's my first kid, so very anxious. Like, oh my God, how's my life gonna change? What's gonna happen, and this and that. But excited though, excited as all hell. Very, very excited. I can't wait to meet, um, firstborn. So I guess yeah. So very
I'm
excited.
so excited. I'm so cheesy. I'm like, I can't wait. I'm excited to have the baby on the show. I'm excited to have a guest and be like, yeah, talk to me about that. Pat the baby on the back.
What about all?
No, it's all gonna happen. I'm like COVID edition or not. Social distancing will happen except on Tuesdays.
Okay.
I'm really excited. No, but congratulations to you and congratulations to your significant other, Scorpio Spice. I won't put her government out there. If y'all been keeping up with our show, y'all know who she is. But that is exciting times. I mean, especially given these moments, right? I think that, well, I can't put words in your mouth, but like, what is it like really to have a child coming in a time where COVID is in existence? We have, again, this overt level of racism that is huge in social media, right? And you yourself are a Black man.
Yeah, and I think that's what's made it a lot more. It's hit home a lot more for me because of this. Normally, like I told you last week in the episode, it's like, okay, this is another man that's got shot. It's America. It's something that happens. But what happened with George Floyd and the way that he was murdered, and then with this, and like, oh my God, what am I bringing? I'm bringing a child into this world. At that, a Black child into this world. It's like, oh, okay, I really have to. I don't know. It's one of those. It's a scary thought. It's exciting, but it's a scary thought at the same time. There's so much potential out in the world, but at the same time, all the negative that's happening scares you as a parent. Because, I saw a video the other day. I think I just saw it yesterday. This little boy was playing in his front yard, and a police car started driving by, not minding him at all, but just turned on its siren and started driving. He went and hid behind the car. And this kid didn't look like he was more, probably like under 13. So to see something like that, it's like now you have a 13-year-old that is scared of the police. And he needs to hide from them when the police siren turns on and is speeding down the street to go answer something else.
Right.
That like really hit home for me. I was like, wow, like this is the world that we're living in. So sometimes it's very sad to hear about that, but yeah, but you can't let that deter you though. So
no, you can't. And I'm like, we have to keep hope alive. We have to keep positivity alive. But at the same time, right, again, it goes back to my statement earlier, like still holding people accountable because we live in that world, and I think about some positive things that can come out of our world right now, not entirely race related, but not necessarily dismissing race either. Kind of pivoting a little bit, but as you talk about the Black family, as you talk about bringing in a child, as we talk about our economics and our positioning, it really encourages me to think about Boston and like what the Black family looks like in the city, right? Like economically, we know we struggle. The Black family makes $8 to over 2,000 and some change to a white counterpart. Yeah, it's so depressing, right? And so like we think about that, and I think about the fact that home ownership here is really difficult and it's a challenge. But I think one of the come ups or hopeful come ups for Boston during this time is the fact that they just launched, actually, as of the 15th of June, a new loan opportunity for folks to be able to own their homes. And it's called the 1+ Boston loan, or 1+ loan, if you will, for Boston, which is really exciting because Boston already has the one mortgage. And I think that this is like the 1+ mortgage, which allows for people to have even lower interest rates on their homes and their purchases, and a higher AMI, which really focuses on how much money a person makes as an individual or in a partnership, which I think really, really allows for Boston to be more, well, residents of Boston to be able to stay in their own cities, right? So as we're having like condos go for $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, like a condo, which is a portion of a house at these skyrocketed prices, it's really, really challenging for folks to be able to own property. And we know when we're talking about equity, when we're talking about economic stability, that home ownership plays a major role in that. And so here we are in a position right now where the 1+ mortgage, 1+ Boston mortgage program would really allow for things to be more possible for folks. So for example, if you had on their website, City of Boston's website, it lists like if a conventional loan that would allow you to purchase property or to receive a loan for up to $306,000. Right now, you can actually qualify for one for $150,000, right? Which is in that same bracket, right? And so, like, whereas your down payment for a conventional loan might have been $15,300 through the 1+ Boston loan, it'll be $6,750, right? So, and then the conventional loan would be at an interest rate of 3.5%, whereas like this one would be an interest rate of 2%, right? So like you're seeing the changes there. Now, what is another point of highlighting though, is that your taxes and your hazard insurance for a conventional loan would be lower than it would be for the 1+ Boston loan. But again, taking that into consideration though, when you cut corners and other costs, as far as like the down payment, the interest rates, and the private mortgage insurance with the PMI, it looks totally different, right? So here we are again in a position where hopefully things are starting to look good. And this is part of a major plan for home ownership and changing the landscape for Boston in up until like 2030, which is not too far from now. I would say a decade from now, but I really say it's about 9 years from now, thinking about where we are in 2020. So for Boston, I think that that's a great opportunity, and I want us to continue to climb that ladder.
Awesome.
Home ownership changes things in the landscape of life. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more. But
I was
go ahead.
I was like, do you currently have to be living in Boston and everything like that to receive it? Okay.
I think you have to want to live in Boston. So like that's the challenge there. Not challenge there, but I think that that's like part of what they're looking for. Is that, but actually I'm like, I want to provide people with as much information as possible. So it's income eligible first time home buyers purchasing home within the city. So you have to want to be able to purchase in Boston for sure. So so if you're looking to purchase in the city, this is a great opportunity for you, but it is income restricted. And so people have to be very mindful of what that looks like for their homes. And so with the fees, with the restrictions, it allows people to be super competitive as far as like being able to sign up for the program. But then it does actually take people out of the game as well, depending on what your position is in Boston. So I'd actually like to see more programs exist too for people who aren't necessarily wealthy, but might not qualify based on the AMI for some of these programs, but to still be able to have lower interest rates, right? So like, it's one of those examples like, because you make a couple $1,000s more, they just think like you're in a better position, but we know that that's not necessarily true.
Exactly.
Right. So getting cut off for a few thousand is not it. I think they should have that max AMI, but then have a range in between that. It's like you have the AMI, but if you're 10 to 50, like no more than $15,000 over that, or you're not making more than $10,000 over that,
because I'm looking at
we'll still consider you.
2 people, 2-income household, 95,000 is the max. That's like living in Boston. That's barely anything. People. So
absolutely. So, but again, an opportunity for home ownership for Boston. And so people of color, I want y'all to not sell your homes if you have them. And if you don't have them, do your best to get into one, because this is your opportunity to make it happen.
Yes.
That's that for local news.
And moving on to sports, as you know, we haven't spoken about sports in a while, especially with the whole pandemic and everything that's happening. You have the NBA that is trying to come back, the National Basketball Association. They canceled back in March, and they are looking to come back and start their season again. So with that, they're looking to go down to Orlando. There's multiple courts there where they can play without fans. But you have a lot of the NBA players, and mainly one that's really has really spoken up. Kyrie Irving, as we all know, Kyrie Irving was a member of the Boston Celtics until he left and went to the Brooklyn Nets. He is injured, but right now he's saying because of everything that is happening, we shouldn't go back to playing basketball. And his reasoning for this is basically saying, that's going to become a distraction. And right now, everybody's looking for a distraction to forget about what is happening out there, not just on the COVID side, but also with all the protests and everything that is happening. He believes that if we start basketball back up again, people will look for that as an excuse to say, oh, there's basketball happening. We don't need to worry. Their minds will fall off. Less people will start going out. 22 days now, 22 straight days of protests in the United States. He thinks that will stop once basketball starts. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are, Bernardine, on that. I'm like leaning both ways. I feel like they should not play. The season has stopped. Let's focus on this. A lot of the players are going out, and a lot of players are actually protesting with their fans, with their cities. They're walking around. A lot of them are doing behind the scenes stuff all the time. And I think if the season starts back up, like Kyrie's saying, it will distract from that. But you have other players like LeBron that say, well, it'll be a good way for us to come back and, make the country whole again and bring the country together, which is like, okay, you want to bring the country together, but you also don't want to forget what's happening because there's a lot of changes that still need to happen and they have not happened yet. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Bernadine.
Well, I think not violence. I think that the pandemic sickness is real. I think that we have to be very cautious, right? I mean, it's tough for me because I look at it like racially, economically, socially, all of the above, right? So already Black people are pillars when it comes to sports and athleticism. Like we're just known for this work. And so here we are where sports also unifies us, right? Unites us, brings us together in a common front, allows people to get to know us, to connect with us, to support us. We connect and support each other. Like it builds community in so many ways. And so on the face of like brotherhood and sisterhood and building solidarity and community, like, of course I want to support, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to support something like that at the expense of our livelihood and who we are and how we navigate life. I don't feel like we're completely in the clear when it comes to our health. We still have, if Black people were the targets or were greatly impacted by the pandemic because of pre-existing health conditions, those don't just go away because you're playing basketball. And so I'm looking at that, like you're still putting yourself in compromising position. So while you're like hanging out with your friends on the courts, are you going to be in a position where you're going to bring something home to your family, right? To your loved ones, to a grandmother. And I want us to still think about that. So that's actually, it makes me think too about the response like Boston has had with the phases of opening up Boston again, which I think is amazing because it allows for people to get together and to socialize. But we've noticed like an increase and a decrease in numbers, but then you have like a city like Houston, right? Like where they were open and they were doing well, and then all of a sudden you saw a skyrocket of numbers take place in people who contracted the virus. Because I think what happens too is like once you do that and there's an influx of people, it looks different. So I'm not opposed to it, but I'm also like, I just need us to be very aware of what's going on. So that's that. But I was going to say, I was like, for the culture, though, in addition to sports news, I got to talk to you all about the season finale of Insecure. With my girl, Issa. Okay, so there was a couple of things. So they talked about postpartum, which is very real, right? We don't talk about it a lot in the Black and Brown community. So I'm happy that they were able to talk about that. I'm not going to say too much, but I'm going to say that they had that moment where they talked about it, and I want to acknowledge it. But the other main part of this show was what happened with Issa. I'm letting y'all know right now. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Like, listen. No, I'm not. I'm like, let's fast forward.
I'm telling the guys, like, if they're listening.
Oh, right, fast forward. This is your time. I'm giving you 5 seconds. Yeah. Okay, so I give you a heads up. Listen, Lawrence got Condola.
Yes.
Lawrence got Condola pregnant while he's working everything out with Issa. They were not together when she got pregnant.
And he got a new job, y'all.
Right, and he got a new job. But okay, a new job is a new job. But sis, is with her man's, and her man's is having a baby by another woman.
You know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of the whole Dwayne Wade situation with him and Gabrielle, how he stepped away. They got pregnant.
Or like any relationship. A lot of relationships.
That's not something that happens that often. Come on.
I wouldn't say it's all relationships, but I can't really say that, but it does happen in a number of relationships. And so I'm looking at this right now, like, what is going on? So here we are in a moment, in a space where I'm like, wow, Condola is pregnant and Issa's looking like this is too much. And so my question before we just transition into our next segment of the show is, if you were Issa Rae from Insecure, what would you do? And that's all I gotta say is, like, would you stay or would you leave? I'll tell y'all right now that I would be boohoo crying. Give me a minute, give me a couple of days, maybe give me a couple of months, but I'd be right back with my man. But because I really love him, because the love is real. But at the same time, like, that's a lot to swallow. And the only reason I would do that is because that happened before he and I were together. So, like, if that happened when we were together, though, and you stepped out on me and did that, that's a different conversation, right? That's infidelity 100% of the way. But it happened prior to that. So here we are. And I'm not going to say it again, Alex. I hear you, though. I said what I said, and that's that. I'll be crying a lot, though. And it would be very, very hard.
A very difficult situation to put anybody in.
Absolutely.
Very difficult, especially for him, too. It's like, now, what does he do? The new job, does he say no? Does he go back?
No, listen, that's their hope. Okay, you better travel, go all the way out there.
But then he's just gonna leave a kid without a dad.
He's not leaving the kid. No, he's not. You're gonna see the dad. He's still gonna be a father.
San Francisco to LA.
So I'm gonna see you from time to time. I'm not gonna see you all the time. Condola made a decision to keep the child. He doesn't necessarily want the child. He's going to be a father if the child is here, but that doesn't mean that he has to be around every second of every day. That's not his decision. He's not with her. So being a father doesn't mean you have to physically be present in the same state, in the same vicinity, in the same city all the time. That's not what does it, because you have parents who live in the same house and aren't parents to their children. So that's not what does it.
Very true. But at the same time, it's like, if you choose to be a father and be in their life, you don't want to be a part-time dad. You want to be a full-time dad. And I think
that's still a full-time dad.
Moving away, seeing your kid like once a week or once every.
Because you have to understand what you're a full-time dad given the situation. In that situation, right? You're not with this person. You're not both raising this child together, like in that way. You're not together to do it. You're going to do your best. So even if they lived in the same state, that child is not sleeping in the house with both of the parents at the same time. That child is still going to be going house to house, weekend to weekend, or whatever. So you do that in travel once the child's a little bit older.
Down the street compared to a flight, there's a big difference between the two.
Absolutely. But there's also a big difference of me not being with you.
We can continue this conversation all night, but
so I said what I said. I'm like, listen.
So Bernadine has her thoughts. I have my thoughts, collective. You know what? Actually, we'll ask you a question. Let us know your thoughts on the show when we post the episode, and also on our Instagram account. We'll post the question. What would you do? What would you do if you were Lawrence? And what would you do if you were Issa? Let us know, collective. But we have our special guest. So Bernadine.
Take it. Oh, I'm excited to take it away. So are we going to add Monica? Awesome. All right. So ladies and gentlemen of the collective, is that time where we are on our show where we get to highlight a celebrity guest of the week. And I'm so excited to introduce you all to the one and only Monica Cannon Grant, who is a resident of Boston, Massachusetts. She's the mother of 5 children, 3 biological and 2 adopted. She grew up in Dorchester, and she has resided in the Roxbury area for 13 years. More recently, she was a candidate for state representative for the 7th Suffolk District. She was a community liaison in her neighborhood of Warren Gardens. She has hosted an annual back-to-school block party for peace for the past 8 years. She was a member of the Peace Collaborative, where she was the director of promotions, and has helped host their 100 Slices baked sale and annual Got Peace basketball tournament. She's the executive director was the executive director of the Tito Jackson Community Fund, where she has organized his annual turkey drive, where they gave away 4,000 turkeys last year. Like, I mean, doing so much. And most recently, like, she is the founder of Violence in Boston, the movement highlighting disparities around violence in our communities of color. And most recently, I had the honor of being part of her protest in the city of Boston within Franklin Park's community, really talking about police brutality in our own community. So I'm truly, truly honored to highlight a Boston celebrity. If you don't know, now you know, and you need to continue to get to know Monica Cannon Grant. So without further ado, Monica, hello.
Welcome. Good.
Hey, good. Thank you so much for being here, Monica.
That bio is old. I have 6 kids now.
Oh.
Woo! Go ahead, expand the team.
I've been in Warren Gardens almost 17 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been some years. I have, like, my kids go from 22 to 1. So, yeah, That's where we at.
That's amazing. But honestly, well, we're going to have to update some of those details so we can make sure it's all up to date. But we're so excited to have you, Monica. And thank you so much for all of your work in the community. And I can't wait for us to really just jump into that conversation, you know? So tell us more about you. Who is Monica not listed within this biography?
A troublemaker, a fire starter, a rock thrower. No, but all honesty, I don't know. I'm just me. My first protest was in 2017. We did 45,000 people from Roxbury to the Boston Commons in response to what happened in Charlottesville. And then June 2nd, we did the one at Franklin Park. We're now gearing up for Monday, the 22nd, to go from the Reggie Lewis to the State House with our demands, because apparently it's okay to continue to kill Black men, and so Black people. And so
lynch Black men.
After the George Floyd protest, I was like, okay, let's have a conversation about what's next, how people can plug in and things that they can do. And before we could even have the panel discussion, they had killed Rashad Brooks. And so the conversation looked slightly different. We still gave things for people to plug into, but now we keep applying pressure because I need them to understand we're not going nowhere. And so that has become who I am. I am now a CEO and founder of a nonprofit that I got, that became a nonprofit in 2017, called Violence in Boston, Inc. I have a building, and we're ready to do social impact work. But I can't get into the social impact work because of the protesting. And so it's a crazy time to be an organizer and an activist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hear that. So with you being an activist, I want to kind of bring it back. What does it mean being a community liaison? What does it consist of? Let the collective know.
That's just a fancy ass name for your neighbors asking you to do all of the stuff that they need done. That's what that is.
That's all it is?
Yeah, like a liaison, they're using you to talk and get the stuff that they need. So, like, oftentimes my neighbors will come to me in regards to city hall or elected officials, or if something needs to be done in the community and they're not getting through on the phone. For whatever reason, when I call elected officials, they answer, partly because I think they're scared of me. And then the other part is because some of them actually like me. I don't know, but that's all it is. It's just a fancy name for getting the message to where it needs to go.
That's it. But you're there for the community. So that means you're also merging, you're blending multiple worlds, right? So you have the political hat on, or like knowing how to maneuver through those political spaces, but you're still the girl from the community, right? Like you're from Dorchester, Roxbury, like you're on our streets. And so you're able to have the local talk, but you're able to have that city talk too, and let people know what's really going on.
I mean, I grew up on Franklin Hill. That's where I grew up at in Dorchester. I've been in Roxbury going on 17 years now. I think my ability to be able to sit with elected officials, but as well as my community, and be able to be a liaison between the two, is how I got to this point without having to compromise who I am or change who I am. I remember when I ran for state representative in 2016, lost my election by 97 votes, and they were telling me I needed to put on pencil skirts and cardigans, and I was like, yeah, so that's not gonna work for me. And I don't get me wrong, I can code switch with the best of them, but me being my authentic self is where I'm most comfortable.
Yes. And you have to continue to be that person, right? And not say, as you talk about being your most comfortable self, I think so much, and from hearing you speak in a number of spaces and watching you do your work, even through like social media and the food, like even with COVID and the pandemic and all that you're doing with the food drives and feeding our families, right? Like you really do stay true to who you are. So talk to us though about being the founder of Violence in Boston. Like how and why did you start this? Like where did that come from? What was the birthing of it?
So Violence in Boston was a hashtag that me and a couple of friends was using. It stemmed from, I stood next to my son while somebody tried to kill him and they put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. The gun jammed. Two separate occasions they tried to kill my son. In one summer, they had shot up my street 15 times. And more recently, last year, 22 bullets was on the side of my house. So the hashtag started back in 2000, right after I had ran for office. Because I kept getting in debates with elected officials who were like, crime is down. And I'm like, yeah, not so much. And I remember I interrupted a panel with Governor Baker, Attorney General Maura Healey that Commonwealth Magazine ended up covering, where they was having like this celebration of how we were doing great around gun violence. And then they was like, except for urban communities. And I was like, well, if you're not doing good in urban communities, you're not doing good overall. And I brought like 15 kids with me and disrupted that conversation. And it started off as a hashtag. In 2017, a white woman named Zena Merchant, I think she's spicy white. I think she might be from like Albania or something. But
spicy white. I like
spicy white. I like spicy white.
So I had met her when I was running for state representative, and she was with this organization that I was interviewing to get their endorsement. We ended up becoming friends. She's like, I'll pay for you to become a nonprofit. And when you become a multi-million-dollar nonprofit, you can pay me back. We're getting close, by the way, just saying. But she paid for me to become a nonprofit in 2017, and the rest is history. I was still doing this work out of my kitchen. It wasn't until last year, with the help of Mayor Walsh, we have a building. And so I have a 4,200 square foot building with 8 office rooms, 2 conference rooms, 40 parking spots. Can I tell you the biggest part of that story is the 40 parking spots?
I was going to say, like in Boston. In Boston. Your own parking. In Boston.
Right. And so
I believe
we were supposed to do our grand opening on the 3rd of April, but with COVID and everything that was happening, we had to delay it. So now we were supposed to be jumping into getting ready to build that up, which I'm still doing in between protesting and applying pressure.
That's amazing. So sorry, and I just wanted to talk about the ultimate goals. Like, what are your ultimate goals with Violence in Boston?
So a social impact center, but more so a social enterprise. We cover a number of things. So I've done disaster relief, where I slept in Franklin Park for 24 hours while I was 6 months pregnant to gather supplies for Lawrence when their houses were exploding. I went to North Carolina and did disaster relief, so that'll be a portion of it. The other piece is we have over 5,000 plus BPS kids that are homeless and hungry, and for a lot of them, the meal they have in school is the only meal. So we have a Backpack 68 program for the 68 hours from Friday to Monday that will feed them when they're not at school. And then Tina Sherry from the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute is going to build us a healing space so that we can deal with our stuff and mental health and all the things that come along with doing this work. And then the other piece is we'll be servicing young men 15 to 28 in regards to the prevention piece. When I was a youth worker at an organization here in the city of Boston, one of the things I was assigned to was shooters. And oftentimes we flock to victims, rightfully so. But if we're not addressing shooters who were victims before they became shooters, we miss a whole piece of dealing with prevention. And so our population will be those who have proven risk, who have a query, have a felony, and trying to make sure that they don't go back to prison. And we'll do that through a number of things. We'll be partnering with the union to do apprenticeships. I had studio space built in this building. I tried to cover all the things that I knew young people would use as an outlet to pull them in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, commendable. Thank you so much.
So with you getting, like you said, you got an office space and everything like that, you have a lot of nonprofits throughout the city. How are you able to get the attention of the elected officials that are out there, like Marty and a governor, especially Marty? I know you're great with Marty. You have a close relationship with him. To be able to help them. I don't know.
All right. I was like, now. I heard the story.
So how did that come about? What did you do to get that?
So I work for Tito, so that was like my introduction into the politics piece. But Marty ain't have no choice but to know who I am. I dragged that man for 269 days on social media until he responded. And when he did, he was like, let's go out for breakfast and figure this shit out. I'm like, okay. So when we sat down, he's like, so can you stop calling me motherfucker? And I was like, can you stop talking about black men like you know what it is to be one? And he was like, cool. I was like, cool. And we moved right along. So like, I don't know. I don't have a game face. Like how I feel shows the fuck up. And so that's how I showed up, because at the end of the day, yes, he's the mayor, but he's also a man. He also is from Dorchester. He bleed like I bleed. So we about to have a real ass conversation. And so now in the process of everything that's happening, our conversation is still the same. It's just that I have it on his cell phone and not on social media. So when I don't agree with him, he get a bunch of angry ass text messages.
And I'm hoping he's reading them.
I know, that's true.
So he's definitely reading them, because the decisions that he done made in the last few days, y'all would have thought that he was like my white boyfriend. I was texting him like, that's what the fuck I'm talking about. Now we got work to do.
That's it. You gotta hype him. You have to hype him, which I still want to get your thoughts on in a little bit too. With one of the decisions he's made, but anyway, we'll get to it. And I think, go ahead.
I want to know. So, okay, now you said that work you harassed, I would say, Marty, for quite some time. Do you see that it works everywhere, or do you have to take certain different approaches with other politicians?
No, I think for me, it's I call you in before I call you out.
Gotcha.
So you get a bunch of opportunities before I roll up to your meeting and interrupt it.
Okay.
That's it.
One of the things I say to my kids all the time, and they're like, "Mommy, you crazy," is if you ignore me, I'm gonna throw rocks. One of them gonna land. You're gonna respond to me at some point, right? But what people don't understand is I call you in before I call you out. So before there's an issue, I'm calling, I'm emailing, I'm like, hey, let's talk. Hey, let's talk. And then when you start ignoring me like I'm like a baby's mom, then now I'm going to roll up on you after me. And then I'm like, so you said X, Y, and Z. I called you this day. I emailed you this day. You haven't done this. What's good? Because at the end of the day, these people were elected to represent us. For me, accountability is the only thing that has no color. So if you're not representing me properly, then pull up, yo.
Yeah. That's it. So you guys, you have to be able to have that conversation. And I think that you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the importance of accountability, right? So it's like you bring them in before you call them out. And it's like, if you're not listening, then we have something to really talk about. But Monica, you advocate on behalf of so many, right? So it's violence, it's our Black men, it's holding our police accountable, holding our legislators accountable, our politicians, etc., even our local community members. I remember listening to one of your interviews and you said, no, I'm gonna call out Black people too, right? Because again, it's problematic when Black people don't call out other Black people, like, nah, but we don't want to call them out there because, you know, like that's a Black sister or Black brother, but we don't promote and advance the Black community when we don't acknowledge what's not working in the Black community either, right? But with all, we spend
so much time focused on the wrong things that we miss a whole bunch. So one of the things I experience now, which I'm pretty sure y'all can relate to, is as soon as you get a little bit of notoriety, people feel like, oh my God, she thinks she's better. And then the infighting starts, right? Or the assumption that I'm out here balling out and I have all this money, like they're totally ignoring nonprofit rules and I don't look good in prison stripes, so I ain't trying to go to jail. So like, you know, I get more attacks from people that look like me than I do from people that don't look like me, from a place of jealousy, envy, hurt, PTSD, and pain, right? And so it's, oh, she don't deserve that spot. Who told her she was a leader? I never called myself a leader. I'm just a mom of 6. They tried to kill my kid, and I said I would turn this city upside down until I figure out why. That's it. But the same way I'll run up on somebody behind mine, I done ran up on folks for other people's kids because they all mine. So, you know, I go through it. I get attacked, Black men, Black women, you name it. What the thing is that I had to learn is we're not equal, so I'm not going to keep responding to you, because every time I respond to you, if they don't know who you are, I've now made you famous. And every time somebody argues with me, they end up turning it into a podcast, a radio show, or something to promote themselves. And the first 3 episodes be about me. And so when I tell you I went through the most, like if I showed you some of the things I went through, is disgusting, on top of protesting and getting death threats from white folks. So like, you know, shout out to Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, because one day I called her and I was just done. I was like, I can't do this. What is happening? I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm being attacked. And she was like, people make leadership sound like the golden penny, and it is not. It is not. And when at the time, she was being attacked by Donald Trump, and I don't ever want that kind of attack. And you know, it just, she's like, you get in your space, you cry, you talk to the people who love you, you get it together, and you fight. And so it was the same message reiterated to me from my brother D. And so I just, you know, I get hurt. You know, people say foul stuff. I've had them drag my mom, my kids. Like, I've went through the most, but I also recognize that nothing concedes to power but power. So when you have haters, it's because they see it in you. And so I try to see it that way. And I'm not responding to nobody that Harriet Tubman would have shot.
Well, I want to tap into that a little bit more too. And I thank you so much for sharing it, right? Like, even for the words from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, like from your community, the importance of crying and truly processing, because I think that what we often do too is we see our leaders, right? But we don't remember all the time that our leaders are also human beings with emotions, with hearts. Like you said, like even last year, like your house was shot at over 20 times. Like, that is not a fun, like, you're not doing this because it's glamorous, right? You're doing it because it's necessary. You're doing it because of pain. Like, I never want to experience what it's like to have your son have a gun pulled on their face right next to you. And it just so happened that the gun was jammed, that it didn't take your son's life. Like, that is real trauma. So understanding all that you do in the face of trauma and supporting your family, your community, and yourself. Like, how does Monica take care of Monica? What does self-care and balance truly look like, particularly in these trying times where everything is all over social media and you're constantly in the limelight, like you're constantly in the globe, which is amazing, right? But at the same time, you're the face of so much. So where does Monica, able to be Monica, stepping away from activism, stepping away from the responsibilities to the community?
So I'll answer you by saying this first. Everything you just named is absolutely correct, but add in the fact that I'm still a Black woman. So I've had 4 miscarriages in the last 2 years, right? In between all of the stuff that I've done. And when you couple that in with the trauma and the attacks and the death threats and just all the stuff that I've experienced, it's a lot. So I reached out to Tina Sherry, who is at the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. And I remember she was like, if you ever want to talk to me, you can come talk to me. We can meet once a week. When she first made the offer, I heard her and I was like, because I got trust issues. If you do this work long enough, you're leery on who you want to open up to, because it can go one of two ways. And people usually use it against you. So she made the offer. I was a little skeptical. And then she made the offer again. And I took her up on that offer. And this was a few months ago. Once a week, I check in with her. I go in this room and I lay it all out. And I never forget the first meeting with her. We didn't even talk. She just let me cry. I just was like, I can't do it. Like, why is this happening? Like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm being falsely accused. And she's like, but are you what they saying you are? And I'm like, no. And she just really helped me put things into perspective. So once a week, I was at the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute meeting with her at the crack of dawn in the morning. Like I was showing up to get drugs every day, because that's what it was for me, just to be able to heal. But she put into perspective for me that you got to heal yourself so you don't spill out onto other people, even in this work. And so doing this work in itself is traumatizing, but having so much that you deal with. I'm a mom of 6. 2 of my kids are adopted. I'm on husband number 2. He's still number 1, but it's just, I got 2 pit bulls. It's a lot of shit happening in my house. You know what I mean? On top of serving my community. And so I just begin to deal with my own personal stuff. She's still, like, even though we're in the pandemic, I get my meditation videos every morning from her. I'm still checking in. I allocate time for myself. And then the last thing I do, I take vacations.
You have to.
Oh, that's good.
You have to. You have to unplug.
I won't say nothing, and I'll leave. And then by the time I post, I'm in Colombia. Like,
that's it. Well, I envy that. I gotta definitely go on vacation at one point.
Yeah, I tell Birdie that all the time. So what I think I want to go back on is, how does your family feel? Because you said, you've had guns pulled out on your kids, 22 bullets on the side of your house. Now, are they up for you doing this and being in the position that you are? Or are they like, hey, mom, you need to stop, or you're endangering us. You need to stop doing this. Or do you ever feel any guilt by what you're doing?
So all of the above. I would also say that after this, y'all should really go watch my documentary on YouTube, because my kids are on it talking about this very thing. But at the beginning, they loved it because we were doing block parties and it was fun. But then when the attacks and the death threats and all of that stuff started happening, they're like, no, we're done. You need to quit. And I'm like, but this is something I have to do. So they get it now. Guilt every day. Every day that I remain in Roxbury, and every time a firecracker go off, I'm not sure if it's a firecracker or a bullet. I'm not about to call the police on kids doing firecrackers, because that's traumatizing in itself. I just want to put that out there. But definitely guilt in regards to the fact that my kids can't take public transportation. They don't walk to the corner store. Like, that's not our reality. And the times that I've tried to move has been the most difficult. So we're now in the process of exploring buying a house, because that seems to be my only option given my family size. But yeah, the guilt I deal with a lot. And my kids is like, Mommy, we get it. You know, we move differently in order for them to be safe. But it's been a lot. My husband is like super defensive. So the times that I was attacked, he was ready to defend my honor. And I'm like, so you can't do that. And, you know, it becomes frustrating. I think people think when they see me, they don't realize who in the city is my family. So there's been times when I've been attacked, more specifically by Black men. And I got brothers and cousins who are like, so how long are we supposed to let this happen? And I'm like, you have to. I can't say I'm for violence prevention and engage in that activity. They're doing this from a place of pain, hurt, and feeling left out. And so you just got to roll with the punches. It's part of being a public figure.
Absolutely. You said so much there, Monica, too, right? That responsibility you have as a Black woman, even earlier when you were mentioning, you know, you're a Black woman first, like before anybody can know anything about Monica, what I see is a Black woman, right? And that comes with its own responsibilities, and adding the partnership, adding the children, like there's just a lot of responsibility that you have there, right? And even as you were communicating, like, people will do harm onto you, but you have to understand, like you're telling yourself to understand that they're coming from a point of pain too. But here you are coming from a point of pain, and you're turning that pain to power, right? Like Congresswoman Ayanna Presley says, like, those closest to the pain need to be closest to the power. And you were in a position to transition that into an element of uplifting and empowering the community. But I really want to focus on that comment you said about forgiving almost our people because they go through so much pain. But at what point do we navigate and balance forgiving someone and having a level of compassion and empathy, but also holding you accountable to say, like, no nonsense is no nonsense. Like, yes, you are running violence in Boston, but like, I don't want to fight fire with fire, but put some respect on my name and like understand, like, that is not okay. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like I'm fighting against everything that you are actually inflicting on my family. Like, how are we gonna make do?
I haven't mastered that yet, so maybe I'm not the best person, because somebody maybe like a couple months ago accused me of, in the midst of feeding the community, she's getting all this grant funding and she's stealing and embezzling. And I'm gonna tell you why I haven't mastered it yet, because I'm an Aquarius. I put thought into ether in your ass. So I put a whole video montage to Young MA together with receipts and dropped it on Facebook, because I felt like I'm tired of being attacked for stealing. Look at all of these accounts that I'm showing you. You can look at any account I have, but none of y'all have asked. You've only assumed. And I dropped the video, and I never forget, Tina Sherry, a number of different people reached out to me and was like, don't you ever do that again. You have nothing to prove to people that don't leave their couch, don't do the work that you do, and are not in your same field. And so I just embraced the whole, I'm not arguing with nobody that Harriet Tubman would have shot. Because at the end of the day, we're not on the same level. And the reason why is you can only be held accountable by somebody who is in community with you. If you're not in community with me, you can't hold me accountable, because we're not on the same level. You're not doing this work. You don't know what I experience on a daily basis. I'll tell anybody, if you want to yell at me, you want to be mad, you want to argue, I'm cool with you doing it. Just be standing next to me doing this work while you're doing it. Don't be at home on your couch. Don't be an internet thug and just, I'm the pick of the day. be doing this work and be like, so Monica's not doing X, Y, and Z. I could respect it better.
Right. Well, I mean, then we had like Malcolm X, we had Martin Luther King, right? We had like Rosa Parks, like they all received death threats too. But here we are again, really still working on behalf of everything that they fought for as well. Right. Like understanding that they planted seeds. And I tell people so much, like, I feel like we're still planting seeds because I don't really see this progress taking place. And I'm like, I want to start growing and taking care of the plant that has actually blossomed from these roots. But we're here, right? And so again, I thank you for being honest about that and really acknowledging, like, if we are not fighting the same fight, right? Even if we have different perspectives, but if we are not walking and marching together for the greater cause, then you can't come for me either, because having Twitter fingers and trolling on social media is not leading to change. In fact, you're further perpetuating the very systems or empowering the systems that are in fact destroying us and causing our destruction on the streets. So
I would take it a step further and say people who do that are using white supremacist tactics against their own people, because that's how they treat us, right? They try to defame us, they character assassinate, and anytime one of us get killed, they say you was not abiding by the law, or you should have cooperated with the police. They character assassinate you. And if you pay attention to the Black Panther movement, it's crazy. I was sitting in my car reading about Fred Hampton today. That's exactly what they did to him before they killed him. They used people that look like him to character assassinate him publicly. They dragged him for filth to discredit him. And then the FBI used somebody that looked like him to infiltrate, and they moved on him and killed that man, shot up where he was at 70 times. So for me, because I'm cognizant, I'm a reader, and I study, I'm like, license to carry, you won't get that close. I got trust issues. If you attacking me and it don't make sense, right? Then I get why you doing it. You're an agent provocateur. That's just where we are, right? Because most of the times when people are making all of these wild accusations, you be like, prove it. They can't. If I'm coming for you, I got receipts. I'm a Black woman. I have file folders, share drives. I got 3 Google accounts.
Right. You have electronic trails.
Yes.
Trails of communication.
And so that's why I tell people, I'm like, I have yet for any of the people attacking me to call, text, email, inbox, and be like, hey, can you tell me what you did, or can you show me what you did? They only use social media to attack. I see these people in real life. Boston ain't that big. They don't say nothing. They run in the other direction. So that let me know I had to stop responding.
Yeah. You
so
can't play that game.
With all of the nonprofits, you see in the inner cities, not just Boston, almost all throughout America, there's a lot of nonprofits in the inner cities. Why do you think there's so many nonprofits and not something that's established on a larger scale, to say one for the city of Boston or one nationally? And do you think having a bigger one will make a bigger impact for the city or for the people that they're working for?
So I'm going to keep it 100 because I don't know how to sugarcoat it. A lot of people get nonprofits just so that they can get rich, right? Other people get nonprofits and all the Black people be doing the work, and then all the white people be on the board and white people in leadership, and they just swoop in because they feel like they Captain Save a Ho and they about to save all the Black folks, and it don't play out that way. My thing is this. I never wanted to be a nonprofit, but that was the only way that I could get funding to do this work and not use my own paychecks or at times my own food stamps that I was getting when I first started, right? And so from that perspective, I get it. One of the things I asked the city of Boston to do, I asked the community to do, and I'm always going to ask for, is force nonprofits to be accountable. Make them report back to the community. Who are you servicing? What do those services look like? What are your success rates? What are your failure rates? What are your 5-year projection on what you... There's no reporting mechanism. So anybody can come in and tell you they're doing X, Y, and Z, and you don't know if they're lying or not. And the reason why I said that, because it sets a standard. If you're not doing the work and people are requesting those reports and they don't add up, then we shouldn't keep dumping funding into your nonprofit. I know this because I keep a data trail. I got Harvard professors. I got spreadsheets. Everybody I interact with, I have their information, what I did, what the goal was. And I learned that the hard way because I would just help people from my heart. And then they will be like, you didn't do shit for me. And I'm like, wait a minute here. And I done had that happen a couple of times for me to learn my lesson. But it also taught me that every nonprofit should do that. So when somebody says you ain't doing nothing, you actually can say, this is who I worked with. These are my success rates. This is where I could use help. I think people would be more open to understanding nonprofits if that information was volunteer. So since it's not a requirement, and I'm just now getting into this whole CEO nonprofit thing, I'm going to provide that information without it being asked so that people understand what I'm doing, where I'm doing it at, and who I'm servicing.
Absolutely. I remember in another interview too, you mentioned that, I think it was a life lesson from possibly Tito, where he said, listen, you have to put your information out there before somebody puts it out there for you. Right. So it's just like people are out here trolling, people are out here holding, making false narratives about you. So it's just like, listen, you can't talk about me when I'm out here delivering all of this information, because it's not about having anything to hide. It's like, no, I'm documenting it because, again, you're a businesswoman, right? And you're a businesswoman with a business plan. And the whole goal is to uplift and empower the community. So it breaks my heart to hear about haters and people who are naysayers and are not believing in what you do when we're watching it come into full fruition every day, right? Like that the protest you put on at Franklin Park, like, had thousands of people in attendance, and I was right there in the front, and I'm just watching, and I was inspired, right? As a person who's from Boston, first generation, working in BPS, doing what I do in the city, I'm like, we need to really mobilize. And I think part of this conversation is not just recognizing it with police brutality, although that happened with George Floyd, but we have a lot of racist infrastructures that truly keep our people in pain. And we see that in education. We see that in home ownership. Congrats to you on working to buy a house. We see that in mental health. We see that in the workplace environment. We see that with the glass ceiling. Like, this racial infrastructure is everywhere, right? But here you are again, and you're not even taking it to the streets of Boston, but you're going to New York, like you're traveling, like you were with Eric Gardner's family, right? Having conversations with them. Talk to us more about that, like, and the work you're doing with legislation, because I know you're also involved in that in Boston. Like, you're doing a lot. Like, talk that talk. Like, this is not the time to be humble. Like, what is that like? Like, what's going on?
So I'm going to be honest, it's been wild. I met Angie first. Angie is Andrew Curse's widow. I met her, and she introduced me to Emerald, who is Eric's daughter. And I met them back in February. Angie sent me this video of her husband dying in the back of a police car. He had asked 70 times and told the police he couldn't breathe. And by the time, in 11 minutes, I think it was, by the time he got to the police station, he was dead. And we were pushing for legislators to sit down and have a conversation with survivors directly, because both of them expressed to me that they had been scorned and harmed by activists, right? And so I said, well, why don't we host a conversation that is survivor-led? That way you can speak for yourself, talk directly to elected officials, and you can say whatever it is you need to say with no interception. I said, what I'll do is get the elected officials to the table and y'all take over. And so they was like, cool. And we've built such a friendship and more like family, because they call me every day. We're going to be on a Zoom at like 9:00 tonight. But I went to New York after they passed the chokehold bill, because she had been working so hard to get it passed. And we went to the memorial where they murdered her father, and we prayed and we laid flowers and we just hugged, because that was our first time meeting face to face. All of our activism has happened on Zoom and over the phone. And Angie just got her law passed, so there's an Andrew Curse law now, like, and it came from us getting all those elected officials. So U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, I reached out to her people, they responded immediately. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley was like, I'm on board, whatever y'all need. Michael Blake out of New York, he's the DNC chair, but he's also an assembly member in New York. Natalia Fernandez was the one who led the legislation. It's just been amazing. So I did that. In August, we're going to LA to do Hip Hop Caucus. And then August 28th, I'll be in DC marching on Washington. And it's
I'll be there.
It's been amazing, but I owe it to God. I owe it to my heart. And I owe it to the fact of just being who I am. Like, I didn't have to change. I didn't have to water myself down. I used to get critiqued, or you cuss too much, or you're not respectable enough, or you don't have those educated gang symbols at the end of your name. And I'm just proud to be like, yo, I showed up as me, like. Yeah.
Well, but you're also, you're teaching us to really unpack those narratives too. Like those systems that say the only reason you're credible is by having, would you say, those educated gang symbols at the end of your name?
And that's like something that we see in the Black community a lot. That they say in order for you to be an activist, you have to be the next Al Sharpton and all of that. Like, no, there's
he's a federal informant, though. Nobody wants that.
Exactly.
Brian Stevenson, right? I mean, Brian Stevenson's doing great work too. So, like, don't get me wrong, but I hear what you're saying, right? Where it's just like, no, like, it's not about the credential, it's about the heart and the true intention. Because those with the credentials too are not always positively intentioned to do the work. Like, no false accolades out here. Again, like, who voluntarily signs themselves up to have bullet holes through their houses or their children attacked? Like, or, you know, like you said, and I thank you, and I want to bring it to attention again, like having miscarriages, doing the work, like you're losing your unborn to these streets, right? To this work, to this stress, like taking care of our body, not to mention Black women already struggle with fertility and already struggle with rearing children. Like we are at the bottom of that list because of racist infrastructures in our healthcare system. So I'm like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Still trying to do for the people, and here we are. But I wanted to ask you too, as a mom of sons and daughters, right? And in this work that you're doing with Eric Gardner's family, like it just being fully present. What are your thoughts, or how do we navigate the conversation to prioritize Black women and the lives we've lost through police brutality and in these infrastructures for Black women just as much as the Black men? Like I'm a proud Black woman who loves her Black men for sure, my Black brothers, partners, whatever. But at the same time, I don't feel like it's balanced. And I don't feel like that attention is balanced, that support is balanced. Yet Black women are the pillars of so much when it comes to advancing the Black agenda for both Black men and Black women. Like, what do we do about that? What are your thoughts there?
So it's this quote that Angela Davis got, and it talks about how Black women have had to figure out white men, white women, and Black men while still trying to figure out themselves. Right. But when a Black woman leads something, it's a win for all of society. And so that's what I'm going through, where it's like, I'm literally trying to pick which fight. We had Breonna Taylor. We had Sandra Bland. But at the same time, we have Ahmaud Arbery. And so it's like watching all the attention shift to Black men. And literally with Breonna Taylor, she was minding her business in her house and they killed her dead.
Sleeping.
Right. And so it's my frustration, but it happens on a local level too.
Yep.
Right. And this is that living room backdoor conversation that we got to have with our people, where Black women get attacked all day long by Black men who don't feel like they're worthy, and nobody will say anything. Right. I think there's a change in the air. And I will say that a lot of the attacks that I was receiving have stopped, because Black men have jumped in like, no, leave her alone. She's out here doing this work. You're not. Be quiet. It took a long time to get to that point, because I had fought that fight by myself for the longest time. And so it sucks, but I feel like there's a change. I think we have to continue to have these conversations in order for changes to happen. Being a Black woman is exhausting at times.
Yes.
It is draining. And there are days when I turn that phone off and I'll be like, if you're not bleeding to death, good luck to you, because I'm not answering. Because to be a mom, to be a daughter, to be a wife, and just to be an individual is a job in itself. As soon as you walk through the door, it's mommy, it's babe, it's all the things. And so it's a juggling act. I will say that my daughters are amazing because they help with my 1-year-old, because who the hell after 17 years told me to have a 1-year-old? But they help with him, and that has been an amazing help. My boys work and go to college, so, you know, that has been amazing. But listen, there are days when I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to be bothered. I just want to go somewhere and sleep. And my husband is really understanding, because he's like, I could never do what you do, so I'm going to leave you alone. And I think that's important too. There has to be, one of the things is we're opposite. He's not a limelight, and he's not in this world. Politically, activist, he's none of those things. He is a get up and go to work every day, make my paycheck, come home, help my wife as I can, but that's not my lane. And I appreciate it because it equals us out, right? So when I'm on 100, he's like at 0.
That's good balance. You need that balance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely need that balance, because otherwise, if both of you are doing the same thing, it's like, oh, wow, where did the time go? And you forget about a lot of those things. I wanted to kind of bring it back, especially because of what you do and your stand against violence. We have been hearing all the time now, especially in the news, about defunding the police. That's like the number one conversation now. In Boston, this is just regarding Boston, do you think that we would ever get to that stage where we would actually defund the police? And if we do, how would that look? Or how would you want that to look?
So no, this is a Commonwealth. I need us to be realists. It's not happening. But if it were to happen, I will say that I've been to Colombia. They have no police in the Palenque village, right? They have none of that. They have elders. You got an issue, they deal with it, and their mantra is it has to be dealt with before Sunday. And like, so I know what it looks like to not have police, because again, the origin of the police department was to catch and return slaves. Will it ever happen here in Massachusetts? Probably not in my lifetime. Why? This is a Commonwealth. Crime pays.
That's it.
What I would like to see is more funding go to prevention programs and social justice programs, and us allocate more funding towards prevention as a whole on a state level, because right now it's not equal. You give more to police department than you do preventing crime to happen.
Education, even.
Yeah, education, housing. Like, there's so many things that need more funding than the police. Because if you think about it, if you're hungry, you have nowhere to sleep, and you have nowhere to go, then crime seems to be the option for people who feel hopeless. So if you make sure that all those things are taken care of, quite naturally, it will decrease the crime rate.
Absolutely. When you're not operating out of a place of starvation, you're full, right? Yeah. And so it's like you're not hungry for more. Like when y'all been hungry, and then y'all have been starving. Okay, like you will, like, whatever's in front of your face, you're eating it. You're devouring it up. You don't even know what it tastes like. You're just like, I just needed something in there, right? So it's the same when we respond to violence and trauma. Like, sometimes you're just reacting because reacting is all you know to do, but you're not truly cared for. The other part of it too, when you talk about the world that we live in, you know, the mayor announced that he's going to put a portion to the overtime compensation that police officers make into other efforts, right? Or is not defunding, but just again doing something with the overtime. But when I look at that money, and he's trying to put it somewhere else, I'm like, taking a percentage of overtime pay for police officers is still not addressing our issues, right? Like, you have to take money away from the general pocket of the police officers, not just the overtime hours, because you're saying that you're still funding them to do everything that they traditionally do. Phone disconnected. And you're taking a percentage of the excess hours that these people work, which may or may not be reported. So, like, what are we talking about? And so I need us as a people to also be very critical too. Like, yes, the mayor's doing great work in some aspects, and in other ways, we also need to have these conversations about accountability, right? With legislation, with our people in local politics. Like, we're out here talking about Trump in this election, which is very necessary, but what's going on in our streets? Like, who are our city councilors? Who are our state representatives? Like, what are people truly fighting for? You don't need to be in office either to fight legislation or to write legislation and to work to pass something forward, right? So, like, it's helping to educate the people, because as you said, Monica, we have a lot of tears. We have a lot of hurt in our communities. And sometimes it's people in our communities that need to do the work and the healing for each other. So I love that you're working with Tina Sherry, who also has her own traumatic experience and her story with her family, right? And with regards to loss, turning her pain to power too. But it's important for us to educate ourselves. And so I love what you said too, where you're like, you don't need the letters at the end of your name, but you read, you stay aware, you are educating yourself. Like, you are showing up for your community. You recognize the guilt, you recognize the trauma, you recognize the hurt, but you have a choice to make. And every single day when Monica wakes up, the choice she makes is a choice she stands by, right? And like, that's what we're talking about with accountability. That's what we're talking about with representation. So even if somebody can drag your name, right? You know what you're doing, and you know what your purpose is every single day. And that to me is amazing. And I'm super grateful to have had you on our show tonight to talk about what you're doing, because when people are out here not understanding, I'd say one of the main lessons you taught us tonight is, rather than make an assumption, ask a question.
Yeah.
Don't assume what I'm doing with my money. Ask me what I'm doing with my money.
Instead of using Facebook and posting stuff, and then can somebody, no, y'all know how to reach me. This is Boston. It ain't New York. I'm not hard to find. But again, no, social media has made people comfortable with saying untruths, lying, and dogging people. And then when you see them in real life, nothing. So if you're going to talk about me, but you're not going to walk with me, then I don't need to hear it, right? So again, you're talking about this protest that's going to happen on Monday. We want to see maybe something, you know, one of my thoughts, and this came from my co-host, like, he was thinking about doing a protest for the 4th of July, right? Like Independence Day, but let's reclaim the territory. Let's just take charge. So Monica, I'm like, you gonna do something on the 4th of July? Like, what are we doing out here? Like, come through all the time. I'm not gonna say I'm doing anything for the 4th of July, because at some point I got to sleep. But we can talk about it, and I can share some tips if you choose to do it.
No, that's good. I definitely appreciate that. But can you tell us a little bit more about what you said, the 22nd?
Yes, tell us more.
Yeah. So June 22nd, 2 p.m., we're going to march from the Reggie Lewis Track and Athletic Center up to the State House. We got a list of demands for Governor Baker. And yeah, that's just, this phone just keeps ringing. But yeah,
listen, you're the woman of the hour all the time. So it happens. But I'm excited. Okay, so at 2 p.m. people need to meet you at the Reggie Lewis, and that's just what's gonna go down. Do you need anything? Like, how can people continue to support?
So if people want to volunteer, we have medics, we have legal observers, we have marshals. If you want to donate water, PPE, all of those things are super important. violenceinboston@gmail.com. You can go there, email. I have a bunch of people helping me respond to emails. And make sure if you're showing up, you have on a mask, you have gloves. We're going to have hand sanitizer, all the things.
Awesome. And then my last question to you is, what are your last words or any words of encouragement you have for any younger and older activists who are looking to join you in this charge or start a movement or continue to empower a movement that's taking place in their own communities, wherever they are, Boston and beyond?
So if you have decided that you want to protest, talk to someone who's done it already. Don't just jump out there, because you can put our people at risk by just jumping out there. You don't realize how much goes into a protest until you have to actually do it. And so I'm not saying that you need to be ordained by an older person, because young people are smart as hell, but at least talk to someone who has organized one before, so that you have all the necessities to ensure not just the people around you safety, but your own safety.
That's it. Thank you so much.
And let the collective know where they can follow you, websites or anything like that. For them to
so violenceinboston.org. I'm on Facebook, Monica Cannon Grant. I'm on Instagram, I am Mrs. Grant. I'm on Twitter as Pro Rock Thrower, just like that. Violence in Boston is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Monica. We won't keep you much longer, but ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Monica Cannon Grant, our own local celebrity, truly doing phenomenal work out here for the city, for the community, for the people all day. She doesn't just talk about it, folks. She lives it. She even puts her family at risk for the sake of the greater good of humanity for our Black and Brown Boston. So, Monica, thank you so much for your work.
Thank you guys for having me.
An amazing shero. So thank you so much.
See you guys later.
All right, later.
Amazing. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that was our interview with Monica. Phenomenal. Listen, when I'm around Black women and they be doing that, I'm like, let's go. Yes, I get excited because I'm like, that's my world. I'm like, because I know in my spaces he'll be like, all right, Bernadine, we done. We out here, yup, racial politics. Even on the show, y'all was coming for me before, many a time. Until this all came back to y'all. So here we go. It's us. It's our work. So I'm like, I love it. Every time I'm like, come through. But seriously, everyone, thank you all so much for rocking with us. We had the amazing Monica Cannon Grant, who's doing work for Violence in Boston, also leading the charge, truly a social justice advocate, I'd say, because she didn't even just show up because of George Floyd, right? So she mentioned when the explosions took place in Lawrence, she showed up for that. When communities were struggling and people were struggling during COVID with food, she led a charge and fed thousands of families in the greater Boston community and made sure that they were supplied with nourishment. When she talks about the beginning of the school year, she provides people with backpacks to make sure that they are truly okay. So she's not new to this game, right? She's been showing up for her community. And so for all of you who are out here wanting to be activists or already activists and wanting to be radical revolutionaries and take charge, whether you're a Black man or Black woman, understand that it starts with you first, right? Who you are first, but also do what you do, lead with intention and lead with a level of accountability, both for yourself and for those in your community. So thank you again to Monica. And for all of you, again, continue to be radical revolutionaries and make change happen, because we're not just about talking the talk out here on these streets with the Urban Collective. We're about the action too. So don't just talk it, but you must walk it.
Yes. Thank you again, Monica. And to all the listeners, to the collective, thank you for always listening. Thank you for your comments and your questions every week. And we always want to let you know that you can tell a friend to tell a friend where they can follow us. They can follow us online at the Urban Collective Show on Instagram, the Urban Collective Show also on Facebook. You can visit our website, www.theurbancollectiveshow.com. If you need to order hats or anything like that, like Bernardine has on, we have regular hats, dad hats if you need, hoodies and everything like that. That helps support, it keeps the show going because it takes money to produce this stuff. So thank you to all the fans. Thank you to every listener. Thank you to every follower. We really, really, really appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts because we're doing this. It's not just for us. We want to educate you guys, and we want everybody that's coming and that's listening to us to be heard and come out at the end of the day a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more inspired. And talking about inspired and being inspired, we always like to end our show with a special quote. And so this week, the quote of the week is from none other than Malcolm X. I felt like I had to take it there. And the quote goes like this: "You can't separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless he has his freedom." Again, that's from Malcolm X. And we want to thank everyone again one last time for listening, for watching. It's your man NIC.
It's your girl Bernadine Truth.
And we
Thanks
will
for
see
rocking
you
with us.
guys soon. Deuces.
Yes. Bye.